Greetings, Migkiller. Thank you for your video responding to my video regarding the fanaticism proof. Let me begin on a positive note. I think you and I would be in complete agreement on your point on how Mormonism is poppycock and how some of these 20th century cults have been very destructive and very dangerous. We're in total agreement with regard to other people's religion. The only difference is your skepticism seems to shut down when you're talking about Christian beliefs, whereas I'm skeptical of all of these fantastic claims. Now, my point in bringing up Mormonism is not that Mormonism is a true religion or anything like that, because obviously I don't believe in it. We know why Mormonism, some of the problems with the claims that the Mormons make, because it's a fairly new religion. We have a lot more information about them as opposed to looking back 2,000 years. And also the detractors of Mormonism, their work still survive. Whereas many of the early Christian detractors, such as Celsus or Thallus, the only reason we know about them is because they're quoted in Christian works. The Christian pyromaniacs were very effective and very efficient at burning the works of detractors, and wherever they could get away with it, burning the detractors themselves at the stake. My point in bringing up Mormonism and the destructive cults is because it's very easy to get people, even in this day and age, to believe in completely crazy things, to sign off on them, to offer supposed eyewitness testimony, and also even to be willing to die for these beliefs. David Koresh was willing to die for his belief, but does that mean that he really was Jesus? I forget the guy's name, the leader of the Hail Bop or Heaven's Gate cult, was willing to die for his belief. But does that mean that there really was a spaceship that was following this comet that was going to take people up into heaven? I think you and I would both be in agreement that their willingness to die for their beliefs in no way means that their beliefs were true. And my point bringing up these specific cults is it was the cult leaders who were willing to die, not just the brainwashed cultists. So it's very easy to get caught up in crazy beliefs, or it's certainly easy for certain people to, anyway. So that was the main point. Even if you could prove that the apostles, A, did exist, B, were persecuted for what they believed, and C, were willing to die for their beliefs, that would in fact prove anything. You mentioned Paul's letters in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. That needs to be an entire video unto itself in order to really do that topic any justice. But the first thing that pops into my mind when you mention this is, oh, well, some fanatical religious zealot said something was true. Well, obviously then it must be true, right? You wouldn't accept that for any other religion, so you understand why I wouldn't accept that for yours. Now, you do have some aggressive dating for Paul's epistles and also for the Gospels. Aggressive especially since the earliest extant copies we have of Paul's letters date to the 3rd century. And somehow you've managed to date Mark as early as the 40s in AD or CE, which I have never heard any apologist be so aggressive. And I've read a lot of Christian apologetics, Strobel, McDowell, a number of others, and the tendency is to put Mark at 70 CE because that's the date of the destruction of the temple. So that's the earliest you could really push Mark. A couple of apologists try to push it a little bit earlier than that there were some early copies that as early as 65 CE, and maybe this whole section in chapter 13 about the destruction of the temple was just added at a later time. So I would love to know how exactly you've computed that the Mark must have been written in 40 CE. You also mention you rattle off a long list of Christian leaders who talked about the martyrdom of the apostles, and here's where I say consider the source. You've asked me before, why is it that I don't consider Christian sources to be as valid as non-Christian sources? Consider the source. Again, you wouldn't accept this for other people's religions, so you understand why I don't accept it for yours. The only non-Christian source that you've mentioned was Pliny the Younger. And actually, Pliny the Younger proves my point, that the Christians were willing to turn from their beliefs when they were being persecuted by the pagans. And Pliny's letters actually show that to be true. So as far as I know, outside of Christian sources, there's no justification for this Hollywoodized belief of the Christian saints looking forward to being put to death so they could be reunited with their Lord and Savior. And some of the Christian sources that you have mentioned, such as the book of Acts, also talks about Christians speaking in tongues and faith healing and casting out devils. So again, we really have to consider the source here. Thank you very much, and may God's gift of reason light our way.